All right. Good morning, folks. Thank you for joining. We got a few folks still filtering into the space, but we will get it kicked off. So we are mindful of everyone's time. All right. Can I get a thumbs up if we're looking good on the waiting room, Evan? All right, cool. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Hi. Okay, my name is Allison Harrell. I am going to be helping sort of do the intro and back of house things as far as Q&A and things like that. The instructions will be coming up soon. I've also got Jennifer Killian, Evan Elderbrock, and Hillary Olivos-Rude, and they will introduce themselves as they pick up each section, but we are here to talk about this sort of part 2 of our subaward program. So for those of you who may not know us, if you want to back up one slide, for those of you who may be new or just coming to us for the first time, we are the Urban and Community Forestry subset of the Oregon Department of Forestry. We are here to talk about the Subaward program, which hopefully y'all are familiar with if you're here. As we probably know, our program received $26.6 million to stand up 2 different subaward programs, 10 explicitly for the 9 federally recognized tribes of Oregon, and the other 12.5 million for all eligible entities in the state. That is you joining us today. We did have a first part 1 webinar that sort of was a little bit more of a high level info session. If you happen to miss that, the recording is available on our main webpage, which we will be putting in the chat and in the follow-up information. So you can find that. That was talking about general eligibility, some of the high level overview things and other frequently asked questions. So please refer to that. And I believe we'll also be talking about how you can reach out to us, or we'll be sending information about how you can reach out to us on our main page. There is the booking websites if you would like to have separate follow-up activities and things like that, but we will make sure that you have that information by the end of this session. Next. So before we move forward, we're just going to go through the housekeeping and Zoom ground rules for this webinar. First and foremost, do a safety brief check your surroundings. If you're in your office, just identify any trip hazards, know where your emergency exits are. It is actually quite shocking how many times we end up tripping on cords in our office. So just be mindful if you need to exit quickly that you don't create a hazard for yourself in that way. We also recognize that many of our partners are in-field staff employees, so we recognize you may be taking this from a vehicle. Please pull over if you are able, and if for any reason you are not able, please just be in listening mode only and recognize that this recording will be available to you so you can do this from the comfort of your own desk at a later time, and we will also have the ability to reach out to us for direct questions. So no driving accidents on behalf of this webinar. This meeting is being recorded, and anybody who may need closed captioning, this is available. What you'll have to do is go to the bottom of your screen and it says more with 3 dots. Click that to turn closed captioning on. For the sake of this webinar, at the beginning, please keep your videos and microphones muted to videos off, microphones muted to minimize distractions. And then later, when we get to the Q&A, if there's something that you really only feel you can voice via your voice, we can unmute you if you raise your hand. If you are comfortable, please share your name, role, and organization in the chat. It's just a nice way to see who else is out there doing the good work and an opportunity to potentially see other collaborators for this grant project. As far as questions, please post your questions in the Q&A. That should just be at the bottom of your screen. If you are not seeing it, you may need to click more, and then the Q&A will be there. Do not use the chat for the Q&A. It's just really difficult. It gets really lost because there can be a lot of people chatting in there. And just as an FYI, you can submit your questions anonymously if you choose, whatever is the most comfortable to you. But if you are comfortable revealing who you are, it can maybe give us a little bit more insight into how to best answer your question. And then the last thing here is that if someone else types a question in the Q&A and you should be able to see it. And if you have the same question or think it's a really good question, you can upvote it with the thumbs up emoji. So you can just click that. That way, if we have like 100 questions, we'll go to the ones that have the most likes so we can prioritize accordingly. Next slide. So this is just our general run of show. We are going to be introducing the grant portal, probably about a little over half an hour. We'll go through completing a registration, completing an application, and then we'll move into a little bit of the tutorials on the UCF mapping tool. And then we want to leave plenty of time for the Q&A. Next slide. And without further ado, I will pass this off to my colleague, Jennifer Killian.
Good morning, everybody. Jennifer Killian, Urban and Community Forestry Program, Community Assistance Forester here. I'm very, very excited to talk about how to register for the first time. And if you have any questions, like Allison said, put them in the chat, but this is really exciting. Evan, please go to the next slide. All right, here we are. You probably know this website. It should look very familiar to you as you've been here quite a bit already, but just in case you haven't, this handy QR code in the lower left-hand corner of the slide here will take you right to our webpage, as well as that URL at the top. We're going to talk about doing this in a couple of different ways. The first is to go to the upper right-hand corner of the screen where that arrow is, and you'll find the link. Oh, thank you. You'll find the link that'll take you to the registration login page. Click on that. Clicking on that will open the web page up in the same page. So if you're like me and you like to have lots of tabs open, you will just do like a right-hand click and you'll be able to access that in a separate tab. And again, we've created this QR code for easy access, so you can use that whenever you want. Second page, please. Great. The second way is to type in this tiny URL we created, orforestry.webgrantscloud.com. And again, here's that QR code in case you didn't capture it on the last slide. And then, like Allison said, speaking of slides, I don't want you to ferociously take notes like I usually do. These slides were being recorded and the webinar will be available on our webpage soon, just like the first one. So don't feel rushed to remember all of this information now. Next slide, please. Oh, just wanted to let you know that we have the announcements here. So just a reminder to keep please checking back as you can, because we will be posting announcements and important updates here as well. All right, so if this is your very first time accessing the portal, you're going to go ahead and need to register. Simply click on this yellow bar where it says click here to register. Click. All right, once you've clicked that, it will take you to this page where you will find and enter your personal and organizational information. Please note that the fields in red are required and the other fields can be skipped, or if you want, or they're not applicable to your contact information. And there's actually more to fill out on this page, but we really wanted you to be able to see it. So in reality, this is a little bit longer. We're going to show you in just a second the next part of it. Program area of interest, it'll say test or urban and community forestry program. Just click that one if you want. It's not a required field, but and then the second half of this one page looks like this. Again, the fields in red are required and the rest of the fields are optional. So once you fill out all of your organizational information and contact information, please let us know that you are in fact not a robot and hit the green registration save button. Shortly after you hit save, you'll receive a registration confirmation email. It'll look like this. It will come from orforestry@mailwebgrantscloud.com. I haven't heard about these going to people's spam folders, but you never know. So if you don't see it pretty quickly, check there. And then if you really don't see it, let us know. We would definitely want to know if you're not receiving those. ODF staff will review your registration information and either approve it or contact you with questions. If approved, you'll receive a confirmation with your user ID and password. This process might take a few business days. I will say it's been fun though to see new registrations come in. Many of you have already registered and it's been so fun. Once you Once your registration has been approved, you'll receive another email from the same email address with your user ID. A temporary password will be sent in a follow-up email. This is an example of what that email will look like. Oh, and then lastly, go ahead. Once you've completed this, then the next time you go to log in, you can log in here where the arrow is indicating using your username and the temporary password. Please do note that users will need to reset their password the first time they log in and every 3 months thereafter. The website has links if you've forgotten your username and password. And that's going to be about it for me. I'm going to gladly pass you over to Hillary, who will give you a tutorial on the Urban and Community Forestry Grant application. Take it away, Hillary.
Thank you, Jennifer, for walking through the announcement and registration portion of the grant portal. For those who may have joined after our housekeeping and introduction, my name is Hillary Olivos-Rude, and I am the Grant Program Administrator for the Urban and Community Forestry team. I will be introducing you to the Web Grants Online Management System's notifications for funding opportunities and how to initiate an application within the system. Next slide. After you completed the registration, as Jennifer had outlined, and gained official access to this Web Grants portal, when you enter the portal, the initial view will be a dashboard. On the left-hand side of the web page are a list of gray colored tabs that a user can expand or contract by clicking on the, I want to say, greater than symbol to the right next to that. Yep, underneath that red. Thank you for highlighting that, Evan. We will occasionally be using that laser pointer as just a way to highlight exactly what we're trying to describe for those who are following online. For the purpose of this training, we will be expanding this funding opportunity and exploring the funding opportunities tab. Next slide. When you click on the funding opportunities, it will list any and all notices from the Oregon Department of Forestry or cooperative state agencies. Presently, there's just one notice for funding opportunity posted, but as time goes on, our goal is to have this as a functional site for future state grant programs for grantees to access and to use for an entire grant life cycle. Next slide. To view the Growing Equity All Entities Subaward Program funding opportunity for 2024, just click on the encircled option. By clicking on this option will allow you to gain access to the application process. Next slide. Included with the funding opportunity are key details that interested grantees may want to know, such as application deadline, award amount range, duration of grant funding, program contact information, and description of grant. As we'll find out in the next slide, the Urban and Community Forestry's grant programs, as we post them, we do want to ensure an applicant has access to all of the relevant and key resources to help you create a competitive grant proposal. So in this particular slide, we're showing that all of the links to the Urban Community Forestry's program references, consultation, and eligibility resources. Next slide, thank you. So what's really great about this online grant portal is that it allows an application and an applicant to immediately start their application and submit questions to the Web Grants portal administrators. So as this portal is used for other funding opportunities, Web Grants users will also be able to copy a previous application as a foundation to be used in your next grant application. So to show, we're going to pull out that laser pointer again. If you need to ask a question, on that far left-hand side, there's Ask a Question. That will prompt you to a window. You can type in your question and it'll be submitted to one of the portal administrators. On the right-hand side, there's a green button that says Start New Application. That's what you'll want to actually click when you're ready to engage and begin your application process. In the future, we're hoping that the Copy Existing Application feature will be useful as you all may want to hopefully continue for the next funding opportunity we're planning to open up in 2025. Slide. Okay, so now getting into the meat of things. This will show you how to initiate an application. So once you click on that green button, Start an Application, it'll prompt you to begin entering the application details from your organization, community, or institution's grant proposal. Each listed option in the application will have generally a red font. When you see this red font, it's an indication that these fields are required, meaning you cannot hit, proceed to the next page until you've completed this information. Some of the fields, the data fields that we provide will be fillable for either text. Some will be a binary option like yes or no. Some will offer drop-down features where you select the option that best fits your proposal, or will prompt you to upload a document, if not enter in numerical data. For the purpose of this application, though, it's generally just fill in text and drop-down features. Next slide. After you've completed these pages, these features, you'll want to just make sure that you list your organization that best makes sense. So each of you have registered in association with an organization. Make sure that your organization information matches up with your user profile. If for any reason you do run into an issue where you're not connected to your organization or you're not able to see it, please ask the question, and one of the system administrators will assist you. Continue. And again, these will just show you the individual program areas and confirm the information that you've submitted thus far is accurate. Some of what's great about this portal is that once you've selected the funding opportunity, any of the associated information will automatically be inputted into your application process, like your contact name and organization. But other features you will have to go through and individually apply. Next page. This is great view of the greater dashboard. So let's say you had to step away and you need to regain access to your application at a later date. You can return to the main page to access the portal's features. Located on the left-hand side of that main page, you can click on the Applications tab. This will expand and show you the single application you are working on. And just know that in the future, you may have multiple. So right now, it's very, very easy and ease of use for that one-time use. Okay, next slide. Online help. So what's great about this online help feature is, let's say you can't get a hold of the system admin. What's nice is that when it's available and you click on it, it'll kind of outline what are the features of the application. It also sometimes provides you definitions for the web grant system application features itself. And as you may find, not all aspects of your application when you're working through it will have this online feature. Or if they do have it available, it may not provide you the specific clarity that you'll require in order to complete that portion of the application. So we do ask that you just click on that ask a question in the portal when you're stuck, and then that technical question will be submitted to the portal administrators to review and respond. Generally, any responses may take up to 1 business week, and when we do respond, you'll receive an alert in Web Grants dashboard, as well as receive an email to your email address that you provided upon time of registration. Next slide. So this is a really high-level overview of each of the components that are included with the application. You may find these similar to the application template available on the Growing Equity Subaward program webpage. So we were preparing you for this potential online interface. Each of these portions of the application you'll be required to complete. As these components are completed, a lovely checkbox will show and help you track your progress. If for some reason you get interrupted, as life comes, a phone call, a barking dog, just to let you know that if you do step away at any point during your application process, the portal is set to timeout at 30 minutes. With that, I do want to just remind you, if any questions along any of our slides, please submit it to the Zoom Q&A feature, and we'll do our best to respond it at the end of the presentation. Okay, Evan, I'm going to pass it on to you, who will be taking you through each of the components a little bit more specifically.
All right, good morning, everyone, and thanks, Hillary. am going to be walking us through the application forms and what you can expect within each of those forms. So first of all, when you navigate from that main slide and you click on the general information component, you'll see this sort of preview mode of the form. If you want to toggle to editing mode, you will click on the edit form button if you wanted to change any information within the general information form. And that's where you could go into this editing mode and make any changes or updates. If you wanted to add additional contacts, say if new folks from your organization we want to be able to collaborate with on the specific application, add themselves to web grants, you can come back here, add additional contacts from your organization, and they can then also support the grant editing process. Once you're done, make sure that you click Save Form. That's how information gets saved in the system. If you don't hit Save Form and you walk away and your session times out, your information may be lost, the stuff that you haven't saved. So just make sure every time that you're entering stuff to hit Save Form. And then you go back to preview mode. And so from here, this is sort of where this is gonna be your like home base when you're in the application. You'll see at the top here a list of tabs. These are all of the different components, parts of the application. So these 7 different forms: the general information, eligibility, program, project, team experience, partner organizations, program, project narrative, key milestones, and budget. And then if you want to get back to that main page that Hillary left off at, you can click on this app list and that'll take you back to that. So that's one way to navigate between forms. Another way to navigate between forms is down at the bottom. There'll be a blue button that says next, which will take you to the next form in the list. And if you're in one of the intermediary forms like eligibility or program, project, team experience, there will also be a previous button down in the bottom left corner that you can click on to get back to the last one. All right, so on the eligibility form itself, all these questions should be familiar if you've seen the application template that we put as a PDF on our UCF Subaward program website. But in this form, this is the preview mode, but to go to edit, you'll click on the edit form mode, which will bring you to this edit mode. And like Hillary mentioned, there are a number of different types of fields that you can enter information into. The ones with this little V caret thing, that's a drop down. So you'll be able to drop down and select from a list. These that don't have that little caret, that's a text entry field. Where it says select file, that's where you'll be asked to upload a file for that particular question. And those are kind of the main types of questions on this page. And I'll show you some other information as we go. Also, just to note, you will see kind of blue information boxes at the top of many of these pages. Those are sort of basic instructions for navigating the page. Oh, sorry. Just a quick overview of what the eligibility questions are. We're going to ask what type of entity is the primary applicant. So nonprofit, local government, federally recognized tribe, etc. Any of the eligible applicants will be able to be found in the drop down there. Also, we will ask you, will all proposed project activities take place on eligible lands? And all lands are eligible except for federally owned lands. You can see those details on page 6 of the call for proposals. And then we're going to ask for some more specific information about your organization. So in order to receive federal funds, you need to be, your organization, the primary applicant needs to be registered in the System for Award Management, or SAM.gov. So we're going to ask that you have an active registration. We're going to ask you to provide that 12-character SAM.gov unique entity ID. And then we're also asking for a screenshot of the status to make sure that you're an active you're actively registered in SAM.gov. So if that's not the case for you, and you are the primary applicant, please, there's some resources on the Subaward program website about getting registered on SAM.gov, and I would recommend kind of getting on that sooner rather than later. And then we also ask you to provide the federal tax ID number for the primary applicant organization. And then just to round out the eligibility form, we ask a few questions about geographic eligibility. As this funding comes through the Forest Service, as most of you well know, we've received a match waiver, which means you don't have to do a dollar for dollar match, and we don't have to do a dollar for dollar match for the Forest Service for the money that we've received. But in order to receive that match waiver, 100% of proposed program and project benefits must go to either federally recognized tribes or disadvantaged communities in Oregon as defined by the Climate and Economic Justice Screening Tool, Environmental Protection Agency's IRA, Disadvantaged Communities Mapping Tool. Projects or programs need to be or on a Title 1A school campus. We understand that for many folks that works great. And then there are some organizations who are serving disadvantaged communities in the state of Oregon, but that don't necessarily qualify based on CGEST, EPA, IRA, or Title I school campus designation. And so for this, there is an option to identify other government-sponsored vulnerability tools that you've used to identify your work as serving disadvantaged communities. So if that's the case for you, first, you're going to say yes or no if your program or project is serving federally recognized tribes or disadvantaged communities as defined above. You're going to select all that apply of the geographic eligibility components that apply. So CGEST, EPA, IRA, Title I school campus, or other government-sponsored vulnerability tools. And if you are using other government-sponsored vulnerability tools, we're asking you to provide a clear justification for how you are supporting disadvantaged communities and what tools or information you use to justify that your program or project is supporting those communities. And we'll describe this a little bit more later because we have gotten approval from the Forest Service for a pre-eligibility form. For those of you who don't necessarily qualify based on CGEST, EPA, IRA, or Title I school campus, but you want to know if you're eligible geographically or meet the disadvantaged communities requirement. So we'll describe that at the end of the webinar. But please make sure in your justification to demonstrate how you're serving socioeconomically disadvantaged communities that also bear disproportionate environmental burdens or lack access to environmental benefits. And then lastly, we're asking you to drop or upload a file of the program or project area. If you're using CGEST, EPA, IRA, or Title I school campus designations, we have a mapping tool available, which I'll share a brief tutorial of at the end of this. And you can create a PDF and then upload it here. And once you're done with that, you'll save the form and be completed with the eligibility form. And you'll also notice that when you get back to the preview mode, there's this option to mark as complete. If you've filled out all the required fields, you can click on this mark as complete and it will add a check mark to the list, the app list at the very beginning. If you try to click this mark as complete before you've filled in all the required fields, you'll get a message box that pops up that says, sorry, you need to complete some more fields in order to actually complete this form. All right, program project team experience. This is a pretty simple form. There's only 4 questions here asking about the experience of the program or project team in developing or implementing similar projects, experience with interorganizational collaboration, community organization and relationship building, and then experience with grant management, and if you have any experience with audits related to federal financial assistance. One thing of note here, the program project team is more than just the primary applicant. This includes all organizations or even consulting or contracted partners that are included in the application. So really demonstrating the whole team that's engaging in the program or project. One thing to note is that these text boxes and many of the text boxes in following sections, particularly in the program project narrative section, will have a character limit. So just keep note of that character limit. You can't exceed that character limit, but there's you do not need to use all of the characters available to you. All right, so moving on to form number 4, the partner organizations form. This one introduces a new type of question as well. There's two different sections here. The first one is kind of a standard question where you have to hit edit form and you just say yes or no to if there are any partner organizations involved in the project. If the answer is no, you can mark this section as complete and move on. If the answer is yes, and actually here, this is what the form looks like. You'll get this pop out of the question, a drop down with the yes or no, and then you'll save the form. If you do have partner organizations involved in the project, what you'll do is add each partner organization to this, what we call a multi-list question. And so you'll click on this add entry button for each organization you'd like to add, and you'll get this question pop out where you type in the organization name, and we're asking you to submit a letter of support from that organization documenting their roles and responsibilities in the program. So you'll see after you enter that organization is added to the list, and you can add as many partner organizations as you like to this list or that are involved in the program. All right, so this is really the program project narrative form is really the meat of the application. You will see a number of different forms, or you can scroll through and see all the different sections of the program or project narrative. Here, you can see the program project description and program project goals, but this is in the preview form, so you can actually scroll all the way down in preview and see all of the different sections that I'm about to go through of the program project narrative as you fill them out, and kind of read through the responses while you're in preview mode rather than in editing mode. But if you want to go and edit the narrative, you'll click on one of the many green edit form buttons that you'll see along the right-hand side of the page. And you'll be asked to enter your program project title, and then provide a description of the proposed program or project. And this is where in the application template, we asked for 500 words or less. We've allowed up to 5,000 characters, but we're still asking that you keep that limited to 500 words. And then what are the specific challenges or issues that this program or project seeks to address? Next, we'll move on to the program project goals and activities. These questions should look familiar if you've been through the application form. So how is your program or project benefiting community well-being, economic development, and connection to community or cultural practices, describing natural ecosystem, environment, or wildlife benefits. And then this is a really important one, alignment with the UCF program goals. There's a drop-down menu here where you can select as many of the 6 goals as apply to your program or project. And then you will describe below how your program or project meets each of those goals that you selected above. Next, in the program or project activities section, we've asked you to enter at least one address to be associated with this project. This will help us in mapping the scope of total application projects that are applied for, and then eventually projects that are awarded. You can enter multiple addresses here if you have multiple project sites. Do note that these need to be addresses, real addresses. It can't just be like an organization name or something like that, or it won't actually map. So make sure that you use a real street address when you fill these in. A brief description of the environment or habitat in which your proposed project will take place. And also note, this is for projects with site-specific, with projects that are taking place on a specific site. So similar here, these are not required questions, but if your project takes place on a specific site, they may be good for you to fill out. So the size of the project area, and then how is the site currently being used, and how will the site be used after the project is complete. And then this is one that's required for everyone, but describe the work activities that will be undertaken and how they will be implemented. So this is really documenting what's being done to implement the program or project. We also ask you to provide the anticipated date to start program or project work, as well as the anticipated date that you will complete work associated with this funding. Then we've also asked folks to provide information about barriers or challenges that may be obstacles to completing the program or project. This is intended to support your thinking about the program or project and addressing potential barriers as they come up. And really importantly here, we have the program or project outcomes section. So how is your program or project directly benefiting overburdened and underserved communities? How is your program or project supporting or advancing urban and community forestry after the life of the subaward? We're hoping this isn't just a flash in the pan, but something to sustain urban and community forestry benefits in the long term. And then how do the program or project activities support the program or project goals? So this is asking you to think back to the question on the previous page, describing the work activities and asking you to align those activities with the program or project goals that you selected at the beginning. So really trying to tie program or project goals and activities to outcomes. And then lastly, we have a number of performance metrics that we've identified in our application to the Forest Service that we're going to be tracking throughout the life of these subawards. You do not need to have more than 0 to any of these necessarily. But if you're doing a project that has one or more of these performance metrics, please make an estimate of how many, management plans, number of trees planted, tree maintenance visits, etc. you are intending to do. So if it applies to the program, you can say yes. If it doesn't, you'll click this toggle and say no, and then the estimated quantity of that particular field. If you say no, just enter a 0 here. Otherwise, the form will get mad at you if you leave it blank. And then we leave an opportunity. We understand that, this list of performance metrics is not all encompassing. There may be many things that your organization is tracking throughout the life of this project that we haven't really thought of. And we'd love to hear what other outcomes or performance metrics that you will track throughout the life of your project or program. And once you're done with that, that is the end of the program project narrative section. And we can move on to key milestones. And in this section, you've seen this type of multi-list before in the partner organizations section. But for each milestone in your project, you will add an entry. And that entry will pop out a form where you'll write the name of the milestone, provide a description, and the anticipated completion date for that particular milestone. All right, now on to the fun part, the budget. We've tried to provide pretty detailed budget instructions here at the top of the budget form, and I'll walk through each of these sections one by one. So first things first, you're going to click the edit form button in the indirect cost section and enter the indirect cost rate by the percent if it's applicable. And these indirect costs will be automatically calculated based on modified total direct costs, which I'll outline in a moment. So you'll click on the edit form in the indirect cost section and then enter the specific rate. The de minimis rate is 10%. If you have a negotiated indirect cost rate agreement already, you will be asked in the budget justification section, which I'll outline shortly, to provide a copy of your negotiated indirect cost rate agreement as an attachment. So you'll save that, and then you'll move on to the main body of the budget, which is where you'll add budget line items for each budget category by hitting the add entry button in the associated budget category. You'll provide a brief description for each line item, enter the unit type, unit cost, and number of units. And do note that there's some behind the scenes calculations going on that take the unit cost and multiply it by the number of units. So you will need to enter those accurately to get the total line item cost. And here you can see the list of budget categories. This should be familiar to you at this point as well. Personnel, fringe benefits, travel, supplies, contractual costs, other costs. This is just equipment rental specifically, and then other costs, non-equipment rentals. And we separated out those other costs because the modified total direct costs are calculated from all of the budget categories except for equipment rentals. So that will apply your indirect rate and multiply by all of those budget categories minus equipment. All right, so for a quick example of what this looks like, again, this is a multi-list. Each of the budget categories is a multi-list where for each line item, you'll click on the add entry green box, and that will pop out a window for you to type in the name or position description if it's for personnel, a brief description of that item, there will be another place for a more complete budget justification, which I'll show shortly. The unit type, in this case, we're doing years for hiring an urban forester for a project. In this example, the unit cost, this is $60,000 per year. And then the number of units, this is 3 years. So behind the scenes, what's going to happen is it's going to multiply 60,000 by 3 when you hit save row. And what you'll see here is all that information entered into the list. So you get your total $180,000 budget over 2 years for that urban forester. Oh yeah, I also wanted to mention, once you've entered something, you can get out of it. If you click on that thing, you can edit any information in one of these items by clicking on it. And then you can also delete it. If you incidentally added a row by mistake or something, you can always delete that information. All right. The last most important step of completing the budget is completing a budget justification for each applicable budget category. So for any budget category that you completed or you had line items for, you will need to complete a budget justification. And that budget justification should provide a clear and concise justification description for each line item. If there's the basis of the cost estimate and making it, and how the budget number was determined to be fair and reasonable. And also note, as I'll show you in just a sec, there's a budget justification section for, so actually, sorry, at the very bottom of all the budget categories, you'll see the budget justification multi-list. It looks a lot like the other categories, but it does say budget justification. And how you'll add a justification for any applicable budget categories is you'll click the add entry button, similar to any of the other multi-list sections, and it will pop out a window where you can hit the drop down to select the budget category that you're going to enter, and then write that description of each of the line items that you entered into that specific budget category. I wanted to show the indirect cost budget category one here, because this is where you will upload your NICRA, your negotiated indirect cost rate agreement, if you have one, to demonstrate why you use the percent or the indirect cost rate that you used. And then down at the bottom of the page, you'll see the budget summary. And this budget summary is all of the budget categories that you added up, which equal the total direct costs of the project. Then you will see that the modified total direct costs are calculated, which is the sum of all the budget categories minus the equipment rental category, which is then used to calculate the indirect cost. So you take that indirect cost rate that we entered at the very top of the budget, and you multiply that by the modified total direct costs to get your indirect costs. And then finally, your total project cost will be calculated adding the total direct cost with the total indirect costs. And then you are done with the budget if you've done all of that, and you can mark it as complete. And that is the final section of the web grants form. And now I'm just going to very briefly, because I mentioned that map tutorial, or the map project mapping tool that was created to support programs or projects demonstrating that their work is taking place in a disadvantaged community or federally recognized tribe. So I just want to pause the PowerPoint and show you that tool on the web. And so that you can find that link on our website and also in the resources at the end of this presentation. I'm going to pull up the UCF tool, and actually what I'll do is I'll show you from the Subaward program website. The way to get to this tool is over here on the right-hand column under Tools, UCF Project Mapping Tool. And there will be a disclaimer pop up here. You can also get back to the Subaward page from the mapping tool. You can hit OK or don't show this window again. And then in this mapping tool, you'll see the 3 approved geographies to identify disadvantaged communities in federally recognized tribe land in the state of Oregon. We have Title I schools. These are points, not polygons. So just note that if you were to zoom in on a particular school. The point itself is the school, but the entire school campus is eligible. You will also see a black diagonal hatching polygons. These are the CGEST areas, or Climate and Economic Justice Screening Tools, that have been identified as disadvantaged communities and federally recognized tribes. And the orange areas are the EPA IRA tools disadvantaged communities areas. And so what you can do with this tool is you can, use it just to look around and have all this, the geographic eligibility data in one place. And then when it comes time to submit your application and your project area, you can zoom into your program or project area, or you can search via an address if you want to. So let's say you wanted to do a project at Westmoreland Park in Eugene. It would zoom you in there and you could see, oh, actually it doesn't fall within one of those categories. But actually what you wanted to do is a project at Cesar Chavez Elementary School. What you can do is in step 2, you're going to draw your project area or location. So you can draw points, or you can draw irregular polygons, or you can draw a rectangle. I often like to use the polygon tool here. I also like to use something with a little transparency. So this middle column has some transparency, or you can set the transparency yourself, the width of the line, and you can select color of the fill and color of the border. You can also tell it to show the area of the measurement and choose, say, acres. You can also show perimeter of measurement if you want to. So once you have all those settings as you want them, you can come in and draw your program or project area. Okay, this is school greening area that we're going to work on. See, it's 6.23 acres. And then once you've done that, you can export the map to a PDF. So you can set the template either portrait or landscape mode. I really love landscape mode, so I'm going to go landscape. You can change the title, so we'll call this Chavez Elementary School Greening Project. And then you can set some advanced settings if you want to. I think you can also just leave it as it is. And then you can hit print. And over here in the results tab, you'll see that it takes a little bit of time to buffer. But what you'll end up with, I did this earlier, you see here's several different results. And you can click on that particular result and it will bring you to the PDF. Oh, I guess that one got old, but it'll bring you to the PDF of the map that you created. You can see here's the result that we just created. PDF. And here's the map of that project area. And then you can download that document and upload it with your application. That's a really brief tutorial of this tool. I will also note that you can turn on and off layers if you want to. So if you don't want to see Title I schools, or you don't want to see CGEST, or you don't want to see EPA IRA, you can turn those on and off. Or you can see they'll pop out the legend over here with this layers button. You can change the base map if you want. If you don't want this aerial photo, you can change it to various different available base maps. You can zoom back to home with the home button, zoom in or out. You can go back to the last view that you were in. And if you somehow get rotated, you can always hit this button right here to navigate back to more being. All right, so that is a brief share out of the mapping tool. And I'm going to pass it back to Hillary here for a few final program updates, and then we'll take what time we have left for the questions.
Thank you, Evan, for walking through each component of the application in such detail and offering great tips along the way. So hopefully everyone was able to track, and if not, we can always encourage you to ask that question and answer, or find some time one-on-one with one of the folks involved with this great information session through a booking. All right, so I just wanted to offer some program updates. As you may be aware, the Urban and Community Forestry team is continuing to develop the Subaward program information processes to best meet the needs of grantees and interested applicants. So with that, we just have a few updates to highlight. Some of these will be effective and updated on the Growing Equity Subaward webpage, which we will provide in the next slide. But before we go there, just a highlight of what those are. Updated call for proposals. So the call for proposals was quite rich of detail and information. But over the last 45 days, when we've been working with interested applicants about what are the proposals that can be accepted within the funding ranges, we recognize that there is possibly a gap. And so we wanted to remedy that gap and just inform people that large-scale planning efforts can be included with that larger funding range of the 100,001 to 750,000. So if it's very complex, if you have multiple partner organizations, large-scale planning efforts are also allowable under that larger range of money. Also, we found a quick typo on the workflow on the very last page of the call for proposals, which we have remedied, and we will be posting online after this information session. Additionally, Evan had mentioned we did receive clearance from the U.S. Forest Service. Thank you so much to them for allowing us to do a pre-application eligibility form. So we recognize that not everybody may meet all of the specific requirements for that CGS tool or other mapping tools to confirm eligibility. So we're recommending for you to go on our website. If not, we can send you the link directly to a PDF or Word formatted document that kind of takes you through a quick high-level eligibility form. So that way you don't have to go through the whole web grants online application process. And if you wanted to have a more just quick glance scenario case-by-case review, you would have to submit that to the ucf.program@odf.oregon.gov for review. Also, follow-up meetings. We've noticed, again, I mentioned with the bookings in the last 45 days, we've been meeting with a lot of interested and wonderful proposal, interested ideas, many organizations and key collaborations that have been coming up across the state. And if you have met with a community assistant forester, and you would like to continue that engagement, we do recommend that you just email that, again, ucf.program@odf.oregon.gov, and just say, hey, I would like to do a quick follow-up for my original booking, and we'll make sure that the community assistant forester or myself will reach out to you and find another time to connect. As well, as we are receiving information through our U.S. Forest Service partners, and others as we determine whether or not a project or a program scenario is eligible, we are updating that frequently asked questions form. Unfortunately, we have not done that to date, but we are planning to do that within this business week, and we'll post it on our webpage. We're hoping to do a quick follow-up and email blast, letting you all know when these updates have all been completed on our webpage. Next slide.
Hey, Hillary, also just one update we forgot to put on here is that we did confirm that cities who have eligible geographies may apply for citywide planning grants as long as they clearly demonstrate how the intention and direction of the plan is to support those disadvantaged communities as identified by the approved tools. So in using citywide planning to inform management decision-making, specifically in those disadvantaged community areas is the goal. We just wanted to kind of communicate that out, that cities could apply for city scale management.
Yes, that was definitely the top of the frequently asked questions. So I imagine we will include that in the updated version of our FAQ. So thank you for that reminder, Evan. And just the next slide, in interest of time, I'm gonna kind of blast through this. This is just a reminder. So the presentation is available online. We can also go ahead and provide you the web page in the chat on Zoom, so everybody can have that available if this is your first time joining us and you haven't accessed our web page yet. But on that webpage, you'll have a list of variety of items that you can use as a resource or reference. And then when I meant about bookings page, that's the third bullet point from the top. That link allows you to directly connect with a community assistant forester or myself to find some time to discuss your proposal and then potential questions you may have regarding now the web grant system or the application process. All right, with that, let's enter into the question mode. And I'll defer to Allison and Jennifer for that work, but I also just wanted to recognize we have 2 additional Urban Community Forestry staffers joining us. Take it away, Allison.
Great, yes. Just acknowledging that Leila Gonen, another community assistance forester, and Scott Altenhoff, our program manager, is also here. So thank you too for joining, and you can give a wave. All right, so just in the interest of time, 2 really quick questions to reiterate. How long is the grant term?
The life cycle will begin January 1st, 2025 and go through September, I believe, 1st of 2028 for the All Entities program.
Great, thank you. And then we have a request to please share the link for the pre-application eligibility form. So if someone could drop that in the chat if we have not already. And then also you can find that on our programmatic website if you go onto there. So I'll kick this one off and then I'll pass it to Jennifer. So if the project is being submitted statewide, what is the best way to frame within the mapping eligibility requirements? I think that's for you, Evan.
Yeah, I would suggest doing something similar to what was recommended for at the city scale. If there are areas that are eligible based on CGEST or EPA IRA. But the important part is to demonstrate how the project is supporting disadvantaged communities. That's the intention behind all of this funding, is that it goes to disadvantaged communities and federally recognized tribes in Oregon. So really clearly providing the justification and explanation for how the work that's happening at a statewide lens is supporting.
Jennifer, did you want to take the next one? Okay.
Yeah, well, I actually got 2. The first one is this didn't come through the Q&A, but will ODF be reviewing these applications as they come in, or will they be approving and funding applications after the October 15th deadline?
That's a great question. So it's kind of a 2-tier response, and Evan and Jen feel free to add into anything I may have missed. So the first part of that is the pre-application. So since we were just cleared to allow that process to occur, those will be happening probably once a month. So as we're receiving them, Evan and myself will be meeting with the U.S. Forest Service, sending those out and seeing if they do qualify for that, essentially to submit the full application. And we want to get back to those in a timely way, so that way you have plenty of time to submit the full application before that October 15th deadline. So for those, and I did add those pre-application form links to the chat for everyone to access. For the other review process, for the formal application review process, we will not be looking at those until the October 15th deadline date has closed.
Okay. Sorry, we're at time, so I just want to recognize that it is 11:30. So if you need to drop off, please feel free to drop off. Know that this is being recorded. So we'll jump into. We do still have a number of questions that I do want to answer, though, if folks have time. So I'll just go into the next one. I'm trying to figure out how to calculate financing. We've discussed a few different elements of the grant applying to our location. How do I determine how much these projects will cost and what to ask for? Since I did the walkthrough with ODF, I assume figuring out eligibility, etc. Do I ask ODF for the estimates, or do we reach out to individual other partners for estimates and then determine how much to request? Evan, you want to take that?
Evan, or any of the community assistant foresters. I think we've talked about this in length a little bit.
Yeah, there's a number of ways. I don't think that ODF staff are necessarily going to be the best bet for helping you identify costs related to your projects. This is a great opportunity to start developing collaborative partnerships potentially with contractors and consultants, or at least get first quotes. You can do a request for information if you're wondering about consultant costs. And if you're thinking about tree cost prices, consult local nurseries. Yeah, I would recommend trying to find information that's available about cost for the particular items that you're trying to get through this grant application.
Great. Thank you for that question. I'll take the next one here. It sounded like the ability to hire staff for cities through this funding might be feasible through this grant. If that's accurate, is that also true for nonprofit organizations? If so, what portion of the staff's wages can be funded with the grant money?
Jump in and take this as well. Yes, we recognize this program was set up to support all sorts of different eligible entities that have varying types of capacity. And we understand that adding new projects or new programs requires additional staff time. You can't just add staff time onto your existing projects onto your existing staff and expect them to be able to do it adequately. So yes, the answer to that question is you can. Anyone who's applying, an eligible entity can request staff and fringe benefits for those staff. And as much, we want the ask to be accurate to the need. So as much of the staff's time is needed to complete the project is what should be requested, whether that's one FTE, one full-time equivalent for 3 years, whether that's 0.25 full-time equivalent for 1 year, 5 hours a week for 3 weeks, however you want, the amount that you need to determine, you can pay for it through the personnel and fringe benefits. And I will also mention that indirect costs is another place to pay for staff time. That's the overhead costs for your organization. Oftentimes administrative staff's time gets funded through those indirect costs. So if you have a negotiated indirect cost rate agreement, you can use that, or the de minimis 10% rate to support those overhead costs of administrative.
Great, thank you. Just want to acknowledge a couple things coming through the chat. People are having a few issues with the links. You just have to click the link. It'll open up in your browser and then you can copy those URLs. But then additionally, if you just go to our webpage, all of the forums and all of the links are on our webpage. So if you're having trouble, you can access them that way. And then we have one last question, unless people have more, but if somebody would like to answer, what specific technical assistance is available to help organizations develop their grant applications?
Yeah. So who wants that one? I can. Okay. All right. I'll jump on that. So yes, the goal is to provide you all wraparound services for the duration of the grant's life cycle. So we have been in contact with quite a few grant writing assistant programs, and we are currently, our community assistant foresters are assisting the program in contracting those services for grantees. So we're hoping to have more information here at come August with a direct resource if a grant writing is required, budgeting, other things like that, storytelling, if that's what's needed. We do also recommend, if you have not had a chance to link with one of us through the booking page, offer your thoughts and feedback through our questionnaire survey. Now that survey is going to help us determine what are the needs of the immediate needs for the program and for applicants, so we can get those stood up for you as soon as possible. And then once you do have a need, just reach out to that ucf.program@odf, oregon.gov email, or directly to the community assistant forester or myself that you connected with, and we'll start getting the information to you on who you connect with for those services. So I think that answered it. But if not, feel free to ask further questions. And I do wanted to go back to the previous question, just to remind you, administrative, I just want to clarify, administrative can also include not just, you know, the assistants who are helping you implement and track and monitor the life cycle of the grant, but also it could be your HR representative, it could be your IT consultant at your organization. You know, maybe it's the person who's coming in to just help coordinate your volunteers. So make sure when you think of administrative, you really do put all of those individual services and those line items. So thank you.
Okay, looks like one more came in. Jennifer, you want to grab that?
Sure thing. Can the pre-application eligibility be submitted at any time? It sounds like it's advantageous to submit it as soon as possible.
Yeah, great question. We just got clearance to go through with this pre-application eligibility form, and yes, it's available on the website. I believe Hillary put the link in the chat. And yeah, I think it would be advantageous if you're unsure of your eligibility. Please submit that as soon as possible, and we will try and turn around as quickly as possible. It may take up to 2 or 3 weeks, depending on communication with the Forest Service and our internal capacity to be able to handle that. So sooner the better, given that we're on the clock until October 15th. And if you have any questions about that, please feel free to reach out. I'll schedule a booking, or if you've connected with staff previously, you can connect with those individuals through their via email addresses, or you can use the UCF document.
Great. Well, I think that's all we've got, and I want to thank everyone for their time. Please refer to our website. Our booking page is there. Our email for the program is there. Reach out to us with any questions. I don't know if anybody has any last closing remarks, but otherwise, thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Appreciate it.